Hello and welcome to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar. In this video we'll be answering the question, what are the rules of joint ownership with apostrophes? Joint ownership is when more than one person or thing has responsibility on making something possessive. Let me give you an example. Kejav and Lola's houses are very impressive. Here, both Kejav and Lola own more than one house together, from what I can assume. That's because I'm considering joint ownership, and in this case, when we're considering joint ownership, only the last point or person or thing that has that possessive power, in this case Lola, has the apostrophe. So for all examples of joint ownership, the last word or item in the series is possessive by adding the apostrophe if it ends in an S, or apostrophe S if it doesn't, as we see with the example above, including Kejav and Lola with the apostrophe S. Now let's play around with this example a little more. Imagine I changed it to Kezav's houses and Lola's houses are great. So I'm considering now that they each have individual ownership of different houses. So in this case, we have to separate Kezav's houses from Lola's houses with separate apostrophes because they are not owning these houses together. So there's individual ownership through the two uses of the apostrophe for each individual, but we're aware they're different properties. But joint ownership doesn't just remain with things that we can physically own. It can also be around issues and concepts that are a little bit more abstract rather than concrete. For example, I could be referring to Holland and Germany's problems. If I was referring to the problems of Holland and Germany, I would be suggesting to you that there is somehow joint ownership, and in this case, that the problems of both these nations are somehow common to each other, that they have similar issues. However, if I said Holland's is and Germany's problems, I'm suggesting that they each have individual ownership, separate problems for each nation, hence why we have separate apostrophes. The important power of joint ownership is it adds clarity about where people are collaborating or where items and things have possessive power together. It unifies out if people are associated or items are associated in a possessive power, or if they're individual in some way. Now it's your turn. For each of the three sentences, consider if the apostrophe is being used correctly. Hit pause if you need thinking time. So, how did you get on? Jake and Arlo's team. If I was referring to them, both Jake and Arlo, and their team, I'm considering that they have joint ownership. That's why there's only one apostrophe on the final name listed, in this case Arlo, with the apostrophe S added. So this is correct. Let's move on. Deborah, Alison, Pippa and Sue's dog won. So there's joint ownership. For each of these individuals, they own that dog. And that's why we only put the apostrophe on the final name listed. For this case, it's Sue's. So that's correct. Finally, I'm referring to Justine and Drake's relationship. I'm saying it's intense. So there's joint ownership because they're both involved or stakeholders in their relationship. The power of joint ownership is to draw attention to when individuals or items have possessive power together, and as opposed to individually adding apostrophes and maybe using words that repeat themselves in a sentence, it's much simpler to list the individuals or the items that are possessive in their power and then add an apostrophe S just to the final item or individual listed that has that possessive power. It's a very simple way of simplifying our writing. However, if we're thinking about individual ownership, we need to use apostrophes separately for each individual if they have separate possessive powers that are not shared together. Why not subscribe to Miss Hannah Loves Grammar for all things English, literary and grammatical?